Let's hear it now. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. No more killing in my name. We shall not be moved. No more killing in my name. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. You can harmonize too. We're standing for justice. We shall not be moved. We're standing for justice. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be, no more executions. We shall not be moved. No more executions. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. We're standing for the victims. We shall not be moved. We're standing for the victims. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be. We're standing for the condemned. We shall not be moved. We're standing for the condemned. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved.
Thank you, Art Lapkin. Greetings, everybody. My name is Dave Bonowitz. Welcome to everybody that's watching online. And we are here inside at the U.S. Supreme Court because it's kind of warm outside. And we have a special guest coming in here in a moment. Today is June 29th, the anniversary of the date in 1972 where the U.S. Supreme Court struck down all the death penalty laws, forcing any state that wanted to have a death penalty to write new laws, many of which did. And then 4 days later, and 4 years later, on July 2nd, 1976, hey Tom, hold on one moment. So July 2nd, 1976 allowed the resumption of executions. And I'm sorry, I'm a bit distracted because we have a call here from the Alabama death row. And I want to, so maybe I'll call back. But we were going to hear from somebody on death row we had to call and maybe we'll call back. In any case, tonight what we're doing is a teaching. It's our evening Voices of Experience on the Death Penalty. We're inside, of course, because it's beautiful and sunny and dry, but hot. And we'll probably be inside again tomorrow evening for the same reason. And then it should be beautiful the next few days. Many people here are fasting. If you're fasting, raise your hand. All right, and there's various levels of fasting. There's people that are just doing water only, and there's people that are doing whatever works for them. But it's a symbolic fast, and it's a goal for us to be able to center ourselves and be focused, which I'm having a hard time doing because I'm dealing with a phone call at the same time. This is Tom coming from Alabama. You know, all of you who do prison calls know you have to go through the whole shebang every single time. Tom, can you hear me? Let's try it now. How's that, Tom? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, y'all can hear out here?
Yeah.
So, Tom, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? This is Alabama's Death Row.
Yeah, my name is Tommy Ray. I'm from Alabama Death Row. I'm innocent of Abolish. And I wanted to tell you how hard it works to represent Death Row. And it's something as simple as direct flights will make a lawyer decide not to take the case. If they don't have a direct flight, then they will turn them down and try to find a client that has more of a direct flight. Because they don't like dealing with the court or the district attorney, but here comes the airline, they say to help it. So I just want to let you know how hard it is to do that. And I want to tell you about some experience that I just had. I have a friend of mine that's from the street comes in to me, and he's really down in the dumps. And I recommended a book to him. It's called Reflecting on Life from Death Row. It's a short book, but you need to read it. It's really uplifting. When you think you're at the bottom, you're way you're not really what you think you are. So I recommend that reflecting on life.
Tom? There's a lot of background noise. Can you tell us, so you've been on death row for how long?
21 years.
Okay, and you're in a space now in Alabama where there are executions happening regularly. How has that shifted the atmosphere for you all?
It really makes a depressing atmosphere, and it causes a lot of people to be on edge. And when people are on edge, they are frustrated, they cause more fight than one.
Just playing out.
You gotta get closer to the microphone, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I was asking Alli a question. So here's a question for you. Part of what's happening is I'm picking up the noise. So does anybody have any questions for Tom? What would you like to know from somebody on death row?
Say that again?
I'm asking the audience if they have a question for you.
All right,
So this is Tom from Alabama's Death Row. He's always maintained his innocence. It's a long story. We're not going to get into that right now in this format. But Tom, so I'm going to give you a moment. Do you have a message for people that are doing this work regarding just the situation and what you all are feeling on death row right now? What would that be?
I need y'all to keep striving for that. And sometimes it seems hopeless, but with everybody striving to prevent executions and prove people are innocent, and people that are guilty don't deserve to die. Only God has that choice. You know, if the legislature wants to make it so abortions are illegal, they should also make it so executions are illegal. You know, that's the two-phase. Then some people that are actually innocent will be executed. So that's what I can say about that.
Okay. Well, Tom, I want to say thank you for coming in, and know that there's many people around the world that are praying for you all. Please convey that to the other folks on death row there, and that we're doing everything we can to spotlight the situation and to figure out how to change it. Okay?
The way to change it is get the right people going into office and get rid of the old crowd that needs an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. If Jesus came back when Jesus changed us, his preaching was not an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So
Tom, thanks for calling in. Call me again later on, okay? Everyone want to say hello, Tom, we love you. That wasn't as smooth as it might always go, but you know, Tom is new to this sort of thing, and we are just grateful to be in a position to give him a voice and an opportunity to be heard around the world. And Tom has been, as long as I've known him for several years now, desperately trying to find somebody that can represent him. And part of the challenge he's having is that his current attorneys, they're only going to do the step that they're in now, and they don't want anybody to be working on the next step, even though it's all entirely likely they're going to lose the current step. And that's the challenge. He has to fight his lawyers who he loves, and that's what they're doing, except that they're not going to touch the next step because their firm doesn't do that. And that's one of the challenges that we have here. So we're going to hear more about these kinds of things as we go through this week. Each evening, we're going to be hearing what we call voices of experience on the death penalty, people who have direct experience with it, whether they be victim family members, death row family members, death row survivors, and also people that do this work professionally and as volunteers. And hopefully we all get to take away from that lessons about how we change our own practice, okay? Or improve our own practice. And hopefully we all get to share also things that work well for us as we do this work. I have some exciting news for you, and that is that on Wednesday, Reverend Sharon Risher was in the White House and was able to hand a letter to a senior advisor about clearing federal death row, about retracting the changes to the federal death penalty practice that were done by Donald Trump, about investigating absolute standards, the company which has now agreed to no longer produce drugs for use in executions. Thanks to all of you who called them and emailed them and wrote letters to them for weeks until we got them to capitulate. We asked them to still investigate them because were those drugs illegal? And also the question that remains is, did they really stop? And have they sold to others? So that's all still being explored. We've asked President Biden, as we have been doing since the federal execution spree in 2020 and 21, to demolish the death house. I'll never forget that the morning after that last execution of Dustin Higgs, Doug Padgett and I went back and checked the states. We made a little fire there and we wanted to make sure it was all cleaned up. And then at that point, that's when we came up with this declaration. Our ask is to abolish the death penalty and demolish the death house, which if you haven't seen it, we've got a picture of some of the placards that'll be up later on. It's a standalone building, and the president can order a bulldozer to it, just as Gavin Newsom in his early months as California governor ordered the dismantling of the execution chamber in San Quentin. President Biden can do that. And we invite you to do that as soon as possible because many of us are a bit concerned about his longevity and what the next president might do. And that's what we're seeing across the country also, is when the situation shifts and somebody else comes into office and has the power. We're seeing this right now in Indiana, which just said the other day. We're seeing it right now in Louisiana, where the previous governor, tried to commute all the death sentences, and the guy challenging him was also one of the head prosecutors and fought him, and now he's the governor. And as soon as we get into July, we're expecting execution dates to be set in Louisiana and other states. South Carolina, we're going to hear about South Carolina, I think, tomorrow night, and other states. So, in any case, this is a big issue that needs to be worked on. And Reverend Risher was in the White House in Canada under our letter, which is signed by more than 300 organizations calling for the president to act, to do what he has the power to do. unilaterally. As we know, getting a bill, he can't abolish the death penalty until he gets a bill on his desk. And getting a bill through this Congress, especially this bill, well, we'll be at this a while. In any case, Reverend Risher is here to tell us why, about her own story, and why her voice should be mattering to President Biden. Reverend Sharon Risher, Chair of the Board, Death on the Act.
Good evening, and thank each and every one of you that took the time out to be here to participate in this most important vigil. Most of you know my story, but in case you don't, I'll give you a little synopsis. And every time I talk about this, there are some times where I can get through telling this story without being very emotional, and then there's some times that I can't. Who knows what this will be today? But on June 17th, 2015, on a hot June summer night, Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina was packed full of people. The church was having their quarterly conference, and in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, a quarterly conference is when the individual churches of that vicinity come together to plan their calendar. The meeting ran over time, and they had thought about canceling. But those trusty people who were always present than 24 hours, I found out that my mother was murdered in the church that she loved. No, I will not do a press conference. And please don't mention my name. Well, they held the press conference without me and said that the daughter of one of the victims worked as a chaplain at Parkland Hospital. So what else? Anyway, so we fast forward. I can't tell you the whole thing. Now it's time for trial. My mom was good, and the other people in that church standing here and saying it. But you see, when you have a deep faith, when you really abide the Bible, that you read, not that you're going to take every word in the Bible literally, but my understanding of that was there was no way that I could stand and call. The death penalty was just something that the state and the federal government felt that they needed to do in order to get retribution. And that's not what I want, and that's not the kind of person that I am. And since 2019, and this happened in 2015, I was able to join this group, to tell my story, to go to places, to be at the White House, and all these other things, to see Obama saying to myself, look, who I lead the president at that time, to shake his hand only because we were slaughtered in a church. But I made it my life's journey to talk about the death penalty and to advocate for gun violence and reform, gun violence prevention, to abolish the death penalty. And these are the two issues that I will talk about until my last breath.
Each and every one of you that are here today, you would not be here if you did not believe in what I was saying. If you did not believe that Jesus Christ can redeem anybody, not just somebody, but anybody. The worst mass murderer, the worst rapist, whatever it is, God is able to redeem. We as people have to be able to forgive. And that's a whole section of the book that I wrote for such a time as this. Hope and forgiveness after the Charleston Massacre. Our job, people, our job is to let our voice be heard. Because the more we talk about abolishing the death penalty, sometimes this work seems so thankless. Sometimes this work feels like nobody is listening. But I'm here to tell you today, there are people listening. And everything we do, it might not seem like we're doing anything, but we are. I hope that senior staff person actually give that letter to President Biden, because I don't know if you will or not. I might reach out. But we pray that this will happen, that each person in Facebook, Twitter land, please go to deathpenalty.org. Find all the petitions that you can and sign them. Let your voice be heard that you believe in human dignity. Because this is what this is about, human dignity. Every person on earth should be able to live a life and not be identified from the worst thing that they have done in their life. Follow us on Facebook. Reach out to me personally if you can. I am the chairman of the board of directors for deathpenalty.org.
Attends the action.
We need you. We need you out there to join us to make President Biden, before he gets out of office, to really take a look at what it is that we're doing and try to help us stop the insanity, at least on a federal level. God bless you to every one of you. Reach out to us. We need your help in the petitions. We need your donations in order for us to keep this work going. God bless you. Thank you. If there's anyone who have any questions, I will try to answer the best way I know. Sure.
Family members, different family members that felt the same way. Where do you get support?
Actually, my support from none of the 8 families wanted him not to be put to death. Like you said, my own sisters, my brother, they didn't want that. My children couldn't understand. So actually, I was kind of by myself, praying. When that's praying, because you see, when it first happened, I just been back. Where is God? I want to listen to these people in this church that love God so much. So it was hard to stand up and publicly say that I don't believe in the penalty. But once After activity in this group, I didn't have the support that would get me through. Yes. In fact,
So much for sharing your story. I'm just curious if you have any advice for that abolitionists when it comes to coalition building and ending gun violence and gun violence prevention organizations, because we may not always be alive. And when it comes to that penalty, that you having those personal lived experience, especially when it comes to gun violence, how do you do those coalitions with those organizations?
that's a good question.
Can you summarize it? Summarize the question.
Okay, she wants to know how do I build coalition building between the gun violence issue and the death penalty, abolishing the death penalty. When I get gun violence advocates, I'll just be real. I usually don't talk about the death penalty because the death penalty is something hard for people. And when you have a group of people that are dedicated to one issue, it's very hard to get them to move. But absolutely, that's what we need to do because most crimes are committed with that's what you have put something in my head to say to me, now it's time to stop being quiet. And when I'm in the gun violence prevention atmosphere, I need to bring in and introduce to what's happening with the death penalty and to find ways that we can bring these two things together, these voices together to be stronger. Thank you for your question. Amen.
So how does everybody, particularly your family and other victims, does anybody else come around to the same position that you have, as far as related to the massacre, or?
Not that I'm aware of. There my sister and my brother that was vehemently opposed. They are both deceased now. I have one sister left, and our family was really estranged after that. Finally, in the last 2 years, my sister and I, the only two siblings left from my mom, we have kind of reconciled, but we don't ever talk about what happened. Nothing. We don't talk about it. It never happened. Maybe one day we will get to that point, but as far as I know, there's no ideal that has actually stood up and said that they want the death penalty abolished. Yeah. Anybody?
You've been in meetings with members of Congress or their staff, and can you talk about how bad those meetings have gone, how reactions?
Well, when I'm in meetings with the monkey nuts, I call them, they're really sympathetic. Oh my God, that happened to you. I'm so sorry. We're going to do the best we can to try to address this. But they're just kind of, patting me on the back to make me feel like they're really going to do something. And maybe some of them are. But to this date, I haven't really found anybody that has really come out and say this is what they're wanting to do. Now, the violence prevention movement has had a lot of congressional backing, states backing, gun laws being reformed. We are still waiting for the Charleston loophole, which is HR 138. Charleston loophole kind of came about because Dylan Roof should not have been able to get the gun that he had. The state of South Carolina says when a background check is done, and if that background check is not completed in 3 days, the seller has the legal right to go ahead and sell it. Well, Dylan Roof would not have been able to get his gun, but the background check was not done properly, and he was given a gun. So Representative Clyburn from South Carolina, my good friend Lucy McBath, who came out of the gun violence movement when her son was killed in Jacksonville, Florida by a white man because of music in a parking lot. He killed her son. She's now Congresswoman Lucy McBath out of the 6th District in Georgia. Between her and Jim Clyburn, they've introduced the Charleston loophole, which has been stuck in the House of Representatives and haven't been able to move forward. So my aim now, hopefully, is to stand up and make as much noise as we've made about gun violence as we will do about the death penalty and abolishing the death penalty in all states. But if we can get it started, at least on the federal level, that's a movement, and we should be able to say we help change with that. Yes, Charles.
You know, I hear people dealing with family dynamics, death penalty, murder, coming into your household, your family. You tell people your story, and that's just what it is, a story that you mentioned. They don't believe there's something like that, but looking at you, it doesn't look like you went through any of this. So the reality of it, and I hear people say all the time, if someone would hurt one of my loved ones, if someone would hurt my son or my daughter, I'd kill them, or I would do this to them, or I would shoot them. I hear that repeatedly all the time. So I know at that point you come to that blackness, and and it's not allow evil or that cruelty to enter into your heart. How did that allow you and make you capable of stepping out here into leadership, carrying that burden?
Well, Charles, I knew that in order for me to try to find some peace in my life, in order for me to let go of the heavy burden that I was carrying around after all of that happened, I knew that I had to find a way to mentally say, I need to help. That's just kind of, a challenge. We are born helpers. We are born to help people get through some of the hardest times. And at first I couldn't tackle it myself. But then I started to go back to my training and to really ask God to help me. And that's what God began me to come to forgiveness. And once I was able to forgive, then stepping out into leadership with abolishing the death penalty was easy. Because God had said, hey, I got something for you to do. And I need you all there. I don't need you half-assed. I need all of you. And so here I am. Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone from Dylan's family reached out to you?
In the beginning, when we were going through the trial, each family member received a typewritten letter from his grandfather that he gave to our lawyers to pass to each one of us. First couple of lines, oh, I'm deeply sorry, I threw that letter away. I didn't want to read any more of it because at that time, there was nothing this man, the grandfather of this killer, could say to me that would do anything for me. Now I regret that I threw that letter away, but I did. And there was no, I didn't need to answer him, you see, because he wasn't the one that caused the killing. His grandson did. So his apology for his grandson really didn't matter to me because it was coming from his grandson who never acknowledged, will never acknowledge, showed any kind of remorse. So his sympathy to me really just didn't mean anything. Maybe I might feel different now, 9 years later, but at that point, I was ready for that. Not a typewritten letter. I mean, if you were really sincere and you would have used the pen, I feel. So, yeah. Anybody else? Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do. We will continue to work together. If there's anything we can do to help, I will cut back on a lot of my traveling. So if there's something you need me to do that consists of traveling and doing some things, you're gonna have to pay real hard. Thank you. God bless.
Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. People are fasting, Lord, come by here. People are fasting, Lord, come by here. People are fasting, Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. People are praying, Lord, come by here. People are praying, Lord, come by here. People are praying, Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here, my Lord, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. People are acting, Lord, come by here. People are acting, Lord, come by here. People are acting, Lord, come by here. Oh, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. No more executions, Lord, come by here. No more executions, Lord, come by here. No more executions, Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. No more killing, Lord, come by here. No more killing, Lord, come by here. No more killing, Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here, my Lord, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Come by here, my Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. You're a great choir. Thank you.
Right. I want to apologize to those watching online for the literal screw up. That was my fault to check with the camera and that's my fault. So, but the good news is that we're also recording this and we should be able to put that up. So, thank you so much for being in leadership, for helping us through the tough times, definitely actions, sorting out a lot of our organizational things that need to happen as we grow. It's a whole different world when you get to certain financial thresholds, which we're grateful for, but suddenly you got all this extra reporting to do, and we have brought new people onto the board of directors and new people onto the team that are actually getting us to a different kind of level, which we need to be now more than ever because of the space that we're getting into. And what is the space that we're getting into? Well, at the federal level, if the president changes, you're gonna see wholesale executions, and that's gonna require a lot of the. And what we're seeing also across the country is executions happening in states that have been doing it for a while, where there are issues that should be legitimately heard in court and they won't even hear them. People in the last year and a half have been executed who have evidence of innocence, who have evidence of racism in their jury, who have evidence of intellectual or mental illness, intellectual disability or mental illness, and those things are no longer the kinds of things that false executions. It seems as if what false execution says, you know, can my pastor be in the death chamber with me, touching me while they kill him? John Ramirez actually forced the state of Texas to change their protocol in order to accommodate that. And getting Texas to do anything. It seems for to put the U.S. Supreme Court to make that happen. Because that's the progress. Definitely is, okay, can we have our pastor in the death chamber touching us while they're talking? That's the states. We are in a place where states that haven't executed in over a decade are getting ready to are trying to resume executions. Some of them are resuming executions. And it's only a matter of time. So all of these things are building up. And we have to be watching, we have to be learning about them, we have to be telling people about them. So we're going to be talking more about the state executions, but we also have to talk more about the federal. And because of this base over the next coming months up until the election, who knows what's going to happen. With the election, the time is now for us to be ramping up the pressure at the federal level. And that's why not only was there diversity at the White House, but Equal Justice USA took Gary Moore to the White House. Do you know who Gary Moore is? You're going to, maybe you've heard. He is the third former head of the Department of Corrections in Ohio in a row to retire from that work or to move to a different job and then come out as outspoken opposed to the death penalty and in support of better responsive and also not asking prison workers to take on that burden of carrying out an execution. That was it was tight with Jack Sullivan Jr., who, like Reverend Risher, is a member of the Page Leaders Recovery Coalition. They went to the White House and had a meeting also. So there's a lot of that ramping up. Plus, working harder in Congress. I don't know exactly when it's happened, but we were reached out to by a member of the penalty. So we're excited about that opportunity. Who knows where it's going to go. But for all of us, it's on and to build our capacity because we're looking at more executions coming, no matter what happens in the law, in the state level, and hopefully not at the federal level. But we're going to learn more about the federal level this week and going forward. And tonight we have another special guest who can focus us on that issue. And this is somebody who's actually witnessed some of the federal executions, and that is George Hale. So welcome, George. Thank you for being with us. I'm going to introduce myself. It's not for a lot of further, and we're grateful for you to the whole thing.
Well, it's pretty awesome. Yes, because visitors.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you're good.
Hi,
Using the microphone.
Indiana Public Media, Indiana, and all federal institutions are, of course, in Terre Indiana, which is just down the road. We're good. Oh, sorry. Thank you. So, just, I guess I have to do a little bit of clear here was that I'm here to journalists and here to cover this event and here to meet you all and learn from you all, not to advocate for either side. with this issue. But I did tell Abe. Abe has always been very generous with sharing information with me. And so it's actually Eve who's very great front. And so how can I say no when you ask me to speak about my experiences? So happy to be here. So yeah, this is my beat. I started covering the exhibitions in 2020. I guess I'm sure that they're here to know way more than me on this issue, but just for those who don't, there have not been any federal executions in the United States since 2003 until Bill Barr, the former Attorney General, was able to get a new execution protocol using the barbital at the federal level, and was able to schedule, of course, once it was 5 executions at first, and then 4. But anyway, they finally started in July 2020, and they were carried out in quick succession as the famous execution spree started then. And so I got involved in September of 2020. My colleague who was covering before basically said, like, I can't do this every month, there's some new detail. And he was diagnosed with PTSD after witnessing multiple executions. I was eager, he said that publicly. And so I agreed to join him, and we kind of helped each other get through that process. We covered the executions for Indiana NPR and PBS stations, and then NPR and PBS itself occasionally as well. And so I met Ashley, who was at the time working on the legal team of Christopher Villalba, who was executed in September 2020. And I witnessed his execution. It was the second I witnessed that week, actually. And then continued on until January.
Have you yourself experienced PTSD?
I don't know. I think we're overspeaking because this is not clear, but I guess I find myself particularly disturbed in the same way my colleague was, but I don't. It would be very silly for me to pretend that I experience stress from having with this all these executions. It's not just that, the kind of pressure immediately to write a script on the radio, no sleep, no anything. It's all very very strange, and unusual experience for me. I'm actually from Texas, so I'm not covered journalists, and so this has all been very eye-opening to me, very enlightening on multiple levels, politically, emotionally, but I've also gotten to know much people, and so really, it's been a very mixed and strange experience that I'm surprised is still happening because back in January 2021, it seemed like the federal death penalty was over. We had a new president, Barry Garland, issued a moratorium on death penalty, so for on carrying out executions, but in the years that have followed, we haven't seen much action. In fact, we've seen kind of sort of the opposite. We've been extracted by the administration on. So,
Restate questions.
oh, yeah, sure. Yeah,
First off, where in Texas are you from? And second, how many executions have you witnessed?
I think that was born and raised. I actually was born in the hospital that Sharon Risher. So, I didn't know that until 2 days ago. Actually, one of the reasons that I'm here actually was to interview her, and I had a phenomenal interview with her 2 days ago, and really grateful for that. The time too. Another thing that Abe set up for us and for all the journalists that cover this issue. And so sorry if I completely forgot to restate the question, which way you just have to do, but next time I'll get it.
Where in Texas are you from and how many executions have you
Yeah.
witnessed?
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. The first question was where I'm from, Texas, which is Dallas, and the second question was how many executions I've witnessed, which is fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like it's somewhat rare to see journalists interact with the audience. So I really appreciate it. One thing I wanted to ask is, I've personally seen in the media and many of my colleagues where a journalist language is really important. Oftentimes, journalists who are coming in to cover a story may not really understand how to cover a topic as sensitive and as deep as the death penalty. So we see a lot of language errors and rhetoric when it comes to talking about victims, individuals on death row that are. And so, how do you, as a journalist, engage with activists to make sure that you're honoring the individual?
Yeah, totally. So the question, if I can, this topic, I think is wrong. I think some is basically that, journalists are covering when they get involved in an issue like this, they might use the wrong language. I assume incorrect terminology and things like that. I want to go to it myself. And how do we engage with activists to make sure that we are at least, getting the perspective as they see it towards it. So, great question. Actually, this is one of the things I was thinking about last night when Abe was pointing out when the Vigil started at midnight, how just the simple presence of having people holding signs, how much that impacts the story itself. I actually just told this story just minutes ago before I came here, so I'm a little bit late, about Indiana restarting executions and was able to include perspectives from death penalty action. Pushing back against the narrative opportunity there, which we're doing as well. But I wouldn't have been present unless I knew who to turn to. And so I was lucky that I knew, obviously, it had to get over one side. I think my story was more balanced and much more accurate. Thanks to knowing people who are willing to speak about this issue. I do think that the tendency makes maybe journalists to view the two sides, quote unquote, as like the victim and the state, and that's not really true. People who are born are used to it, and so including perspective as well. Obviously, in addition to governments, in addition to victims, is crucial. But something.
Yeah. Are there resources for journalists to, like, in your the health journalist was secondary trauma, kind of feeding off of what Gary talked about.
So, I know one organization called DART. Sorry. The resources for journalists who experience trauma cover this issue. Organizations. I know one, the DART Center, that does training to journalists. They work on transfer in war zones in particular. So I would imagine it's the exact same thing. The resources, of course, for mental health, in this country are lacking in general. The resources in the news industry are lacking also in many ways. And actually, just made a podcast about the federal death penalty, which is one of the other things I'm here to share, which is happy to ask some cards that I can leave here too. And one of the things I asked her was, to witness execution, did there be some committee that, at least guidance on when they're trying to handle what was done? And the answer was always no. In my case, actually, we're an NPR station. Most NPR stations are affiliated with public universities, and so we're a university, and the HR did actually independently reach out and offer resources to be a public academy. I feel like whatever today.
So piggybacking kind of off of what she brought up, so can you talk about the importance of like working specifically with like lawyers, activists, and the actual condemned themselves, and telling the fully balanced part of the story? And just so some people are aware, during the federal executions is where we started to kind of see journalists, like hardcore journalists, real news journalists, actually quoting the condemned and quoting people on death row and showing more of that human side. So if you could talk a little bit about the importance of activists, lawyers, and the condemned's family on that.
Yeah, totally. So the question, actually, just to talk about the importance of like getting the physicians and the families who were affected by the death penalty, and the importance of the activists, lawyers, and people who work on those issues and talking to the media. It's a huge issue, obviously. I wouldn't think KRC like be one of their stories. People with like policy and laws and things like that. But when you're doing a story about somebody who's executed, it's kind of hard to get that person's point of view if you don't have the cooperation of their attorneys something or the person. And one thing that's really is that they never ever allow any of us to file any requests for interviews of prisoners there, and every single one was denied since 2021. It's just a continuous routine denial based on how night causes disorder in the prison or something like this. And so, as a workaround for that, though, people who are involved in the legal teams, the people who are involved in their families, and other prisoners have been able to be in touch with people on the road and been able to talk to them, not ever confidentially, though, because they're somebody that there are families and things like that. But we would have so much less information if it weren't those connections that people like Ashley in particular is one of them who knew multiple people who she put in touch with on that road. Super grateful for that.
So often I see like conflicting narratives between what the actual, this is a lot of states, so I don't know if it applies for federal, but what the official report is from like the state, for example, and what the actual reporter who was in the execution chamber sees. So how do you do you ever have to like, how do you navigate that? Do you ever get like maybe intimidation from certain like state officials? How do you kind of report the truth while also not getting intimidated?
This is super interesting. One thing you said I've never been personally great. Appreciate the question. The question is about people who are different steps that you hear from like actual witnesses execution, for example. I'm just use that example.
Yeah.
Basically, like the state's version of and journalists' version of and those aren't always the same. And the question was, do we ever feel intimidated by the state side and how different sources are? So really, they never face any kind of pressure from the Bureau of Prisons in that way. Their MO is usually just say nothing ever about any of this to us. And so, but this issue came up there in a major way in our reporting, not just for all the witnesses during COVID. So one of the strange things that was really strange is we would see court documents that the executioners were wearing masks, and we were there. Yeah, it worked. It just really worked. In such a position, and she couldn't believe it. Hearing them, they were just insistent. They were all just precautions and all the rest of the room just kind of didn't know that. You know, like executioner, white mask, you understand? You know, and then after that, then actually, but yeah, I mean, this is one of the real important parts of the thing. This is an executive related to subjects. Which again, I guess is another example of why I always emphasize that, you know, I'm not here to advocate for decisions, you know, just for me, one of them is because we want to maintain our access to the prison, which we will lose immediately if we started being soon, cited over here.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
That's part of it. Reading on the script, take deep breaths and drink water. That's it. Okay.
We saw 2 executions.
Oh, yeah, 2 in 1 week. First 2 were Tuesday and Thursday. Yeah. And then, then December the same year, Brandon Bernard and Malcolm Duval all stayed the same.
Back to back.
They were back to back in 2 days. Then did execution in January of 2021. Corey Johnson. So, actually, that's another interesting point too about sort of value avoidance. And I think also there's a real kind of strange stress that we're missing the is it really purposeful in our response? Because we can't really tell what's happening. So that was the case of the super students. My perspective, they don't fell asleep. The state said, but we're able to follow this autopsy showed that this they suffered extremely edema, closure of the blood, just broken and had parts of the lungs somehow. So anyway, that's actually a cool extra layer of thing about the value of witnessing lethal injection in particular, which is kind of struggle with students don't really know what I'm saying. It's important to be really transparent. So,
Most recently, you covered, with regard to these injections that you witnessed, you covered the exposure of the company that made those drugs to the federal government. You want to share a little bit about that?
sure. That's obviously, thanks to what it's really apparently is John Oliver. Yeah. Absolute standards, the company does almost personally making drugs for the federal government, although they never acknowledged that. The government kept a secret was making the vision of all the time until I guess it was April that John Oliver show. It was actually public radio journalism. John Oliver, former public radio journalist, and Chris McDaniel was the producer for that show. And from what I understand, because we looked at substance issues, would not drop it. Basically, John Oliver's show last week's night exposed the manufacturer of the protocol of the federal government. And then with the help of and another organization, where Thrives, they pressured the company for weeks until they seem to have finally promised they were stopping it.
So then did you publish the story of what the autopsy said?
Yes. Yes. So it was years later. It was the autopsy was in 2021, but we didn't actually get a copy of it until 2023. Well, it wasn't. So the autopsy of Corey Johnson was not publicly released. It was privately funded. So that's one of the things that's interesting too about the federal death penalty. They do not. Their bodies are not autopsied automatically. So, which is, it's an interesting question of whether or not that should be something that's forced or not. I actually do see those candidates or religious like that. But as a result, these are learning a lot less. Yes.
So it seems like more like popular media is somewhat leaning one way or another on this this topic or in general, or always one side versus the other. And you mentioned something which I commend you for, which is I'm not here to cover one side or the other, I'm just here to cover the story. And how do you go about that as you like assist and write it? And how do you not, how are you staying true to covering the story while I'm sure you have opinions, or not having that's either way, but do you find yourself removing words or editing so that it's true to just the facts rather than your own personal human uh, leanings towards the topic?
Yeah, so the question is about maintaining stories like what have kind of, our own opinions getting inserted into the story, even from my critics. I mean, certainly I think it's a struggle for every journalist or anything really. I think that having that is super important. Literally, my question, right? There's a put in that so maybe just my sensors really providing advice, information, questions, like I'm not the one who decides, what areas and when or anything like that. All these stories are pitched, processes of editing, for fairness, things at least conversation. In certain starting going too far off to one side, I think that'll be caught pretty fast by the bosses, and rightly so. There's a place for all of us to take, whatever issue or whatever position we have on the issue, and if I believe that I want to can advocate for against that. Right here because not reporting on what's happening as much. Yes.
So just a quick follow-up, have you over time found yourself either taking a side or adjusting a view based on what you used to have and now what you have? And it's a yes or no to protect yourself. Like I don't need you to like come out to where you stand, but like have you had that internal change or like evaluation of where do you stand on?
Yeah, I mean, so the question is like how this has affected my vision of equity and things like that. Like big picture, school creates issue. For me, I find things that are really kind of more hard for me to not take a side on is things like, I was just explaining to her, the obvious effects of these drugs in people's bodies and the counter narrative that they don't do things that we see with our eyes that they do, so we see at least. Things like autopsies and things like that to show for sure that drugs all, the lethal injection in general causes these reactions, is somehow considered something I certainly have found myself, just going off and, just like start off basically the other side of the question issue, at least is, something like that. And so certainly I think my view on lethal injection in particular has changed curves. I didn't know really much about it at all until witnessing these executions and trying to make what I've seen with my own eyes like match what I had always like heard that was really happening. Oh, sorry.
Were you able to talk to the doctor before?
Just of course, we asked some experts on questions that sorry, whether or not we were able to talk to the person who conducted the autopsy, or just read the report. So the answer was just the report, but I do not live on the people who have released like that themselves. So I asked experts to help us understand what's happening. So in that particular case, we gave it to an anesthesiologist in Emory University who specializes in lethal injection drugs and things like that. To explain what happened.
Pain level, but it's only being evaluated how much pain is
So question is, would the expert be able to evaluate which pain someone suffered? I don't go that far. I think he basically said that, what is happening? Absolutely suffering, like being waterboarded, basically. just pouring into one of those. So you're really on this and that's your life. I personally, I don't accept this, experts, not my opinion. The problem, that's part of why, someone like me who's not a professional has a really hard time, evaluating what's happening at all with this. But it's, maybe by the only people that you're who aren't first to the other side are liberal arts majors like these. Again, this goes back to what I consider super like being really concerned about the facts that I can't personally say what I that was actually happening in Sessions' body and their paralyzed, we're just not in a position to do it. So interestingly, our talks with that's physiologists to help develop a checklist and training process for journalists who are witnessing executions, to know to look for the signs of botched executions and things like that. There's a very strange thing that happens to those sources when they sometimes, and so that's one of the many things that journalists might not know. Know what they're looking for. So that's gotta be super important things. We can't go to medical school all of a sudden and become doctors, but we can at least listen to the advice of people who know what they're talking about before we actually, witness an execution. So I think that would be a really good positive development.
You want to tell us about, you made a podcast.
Yeah.
That took a couple of years to make, finally came out in
Last fall.
Last fall. And one of the stories that was not told even before the execution was that of Alfred Bourgeois and the questions of his guilt. I stood in the field as they executed Alfred Bourgeois, not knowing there was a question about his guilt. And now his daughter is out here. He did a wonderful interview with his daughter. Talk about that a little bit as a final, and also how do people hear your podcast?
Yeah. So I'll just start with Dr. Bourgeois on part of the podcast. So Dr. Bourgeois is one of the 13 people that executed. This execution was in December of 2020, which was very interesting with the last time that Absolute Standards, the Connecticut company, said that they produced in the barbershop. So I thought it was really curious, kind of just timing wise, like that they were acknowledging that they had produced in the barbershop at that very tail end of the execution spree. Anyway, so we're working on several years about the federal executions in general, and focus in the Trump administration's 6-month-long execution spree in Terre Haute, which is the ones that happen in modern history. But we sort of had 2021 and we finished the fall of 2023, especially like autopsy eventually, for example. But the case of Alfred Bourgeois was really fascinating because I think it was completely overshadowed by the execution that he gave before, which was Brandon Bernard, who Kim Kardashian was taking up his cause. I hate to admit it, but which is that I was completely focused on Brandon Bernard's case, paid very little attention to Alfred Bourgeois. In part, if I'm being completely honest, don't like to be on this issue because it's kind of me, things you keep up so horrible. Of raping his infant daughter. I mean, just the sickest stuff you can imagine. But through more reporting than that, we've learned so much more. And the evidence that he was guilty of that crime is lacking for sure. And some of his other part, who has all kinds of issues. Their father says that he had made children. So they didn't even finally murder one of them. All of a sudden, she found kind of unbelievable. And so we had numerous conversations with her about, how much she learned about her father in the years since his execution, also the experiences that she shared leading up to them, including his contentious kind of relationship with her own second brother. It's a long story, isn't with, I guess, the point, which So we made a podcast. It's called Rush to Kill. It's Trump administration restart executions, and then the sort of inside view of like from public radio, like television journalists who were covering it at the time. I have some cards in hand out here. But I believe if you go to, you Google the words Rush to Kill, you'll find it for sure. I won't say URL, but I'll screw up in it. Yeah, I'm really happy to share with anyone here more information about that. And then also just to emphasize one time, I'm here to learn and listen. If anyone has anything to share, like separately from this conversation, like please, by all means, like look to me. I'll be here until Tuesday. Good. Sorry. Oh, you know what? That's one of the questions. You can't see here's a picture of Bill Humphrey, who's co-founder of this event. If you have any encounters with Bill, I wanted to just give you a round to he is beloved by all of us, and we miss him. And we got to be with him and the third party observation Bill Humphrey. Yeah, I met the one people in the executions. I did not know him as well as my colleague did, Adam Pinsker, because unfortunately, passed away in the middle of these executions that we're covering, and I kind of started in the middle of them. So, but his name is very well known amongst at least journalists covering this issue in Indiana, of course, because of because of Paul Cooper and his role in basically being inspired to become an activist against the death penalty because of the experience of his grandmother being murdered. And probably this is not news to any of you because he founded this, basically founded this entire event, which is this for me is my first year here. And so, but I was devastated to hear about his sudden death. My colleague actually and I, Adam, were in either Kansas or Missouri reporting on the case of Lisa Montgomery, who was executed, the only woman on that road was executed. We were making a little mini documentary about her case. So it was a very surreal kind of moment when we were actually at a gas station in the middle of nowhere, freezing in Kansas, I think it's November, and we were in the news and we were very sad about that. And I was actually able to attend his service northern Indiana, and several months later. Anyway, so it's very sorry that it was passing, but his legacy obviously continues here. Yeah.
Oh, I just want to say anybody who's speaking, if you could just speak very clearly and slowly. People online are having difficulty hearing.
Of course.
No, it's okay. And can we turn that down a little bit because I think it's just not interacting well with the microphone. People can hear like when people are asking questions, but they're having difficulty hearing when people are speaking through the
Suppose we turn off the microphone. Ask people how does it sound if you're speaking without a microphone.
Oh yeah, does it sound better if you're just talking without the microphone? Or a little less shaky? It's funny because I literally talk to the microphone for a living.
I'm waiting to see if anybody responds.
Tell us, you in the audience, if you could let us know just in the chat, if it sounds better without a microphone, we can try that. The key thing is that balance. If there are people here who need to use hearing aids, and we want to make sure everybody's here in the room. So
they said it sounds much better. So whoever's speaking up there, just project.
All right, then we'll do without the microphone here. Thank you very much, George. I want to say that among other people sending their greetings is Bethany George, who is Alfred Bourgeois' daughter, who talks about who has been doing everything she can to raise awareness about the what seems to be more and more clear, that Alfred Bourgeois was innocent and that he was executed without a fight about that. And it's just a sad thing and a sad part of the reality. And we're going to be hearing more about wrongful convictions and the death penalty, in fact, right now. And here to introduce our next speaker is Kate Webb. a longtime participant in Starvin for Justice. And it's because Kate called a few weeks ago and said, hey, can we get Daniel on the schedule? And of course, the answer was, of course. So, here's one.
Oh, yeah, I don't do that. I am really honored to be introducing Dan. I met him about 2015, and it was in this room that a fellow death row inmate who'd just been exonerated. And while he was speaking, he mentioned Daniel and that he was looking for people to write to him. And so, I'll do it. And so we corresponded for a couple of months when he said, would you rather talk on the phone? And that was the greatest joy, because here he is sitting on death row, and he made me laugh every time we talked on. He never complained. He, obviously was very unhappy, but it is my great honor to introduce my friend Daniel Gwynn.
It is a pleasure to be here. My name is Daniel Gwynn. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Daniel Gwynn, not Gwynn. Now, I state that specifically because the individual in my case that I was convicted of in 1994 was Rick. This is how the witnesses described the man. They gave the police a very good description, told them that the man lived with them and everything. And still, they came looking for me. Now, I was hunted down and charged, convicted, and sentenced to die for an arson murder of a woman named Marsha Smith that I never knew, never met. Victims never knew, never met, but somehow I got this. I did 30 years altogether, 25 in solitary confinement in SCI Green, Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, death row. And I did the other 5 years after my sentence was overturned in general population at SCI Phoenix, which is in Philadelphia area. Now, solitary confinement was really harsh. They did terrible things to us there, and it was all illegal. But this went on for 25 years. Nobody knew about it. Nobody cared. I was, a drug addict when all this happened. And I didn't know anything about my rights. I didn't know anything better than what the police told me that I had done. I believed them because they were police officers. They're not gonna lie to you, right? I mean, they showed you documents and everything saying, hey, man, we know you did this. Oh, you lying to us? And then, I don't want to startle y'all, but they did stuff like that. They would smack you in the back of the head. They made you think that they were going to hurt you. They was going to hurt me. And, so that was the interrogation, the interview, how it went down. A little bit more stuff, but I can't talk about that stuff because it still bothers me a little bit. I still have nightmares about it. Go to trial. We say, hey, Mr. Prosecutor, we would like the evidence that you have against me so we can make fair challenges. We made a challenge about the identification, process, how that went down, how they came to identify. He gives this elaborate story to the judge. Hey, Your Honor, sorry, but we don't have that evidence. That evidence seems to be missing. It doesn't exist. It disappeared. We're like, okay, well,
how are you going to identify this man? Then they said, oh, we want to use the witnesses. We'll bring him up on the stand and they'll say, that's the guy. And that's what they did. I don't know why they did that, but they came up there and they said, well, actually 2 of them. It was 2 out of 5. They was all drug addicts. They was all squatters. So they was vulnerable people. So I don't know how, I don't know why, but they agreed to the identification. Sometimes it's really difficult to talk about this, but I need to talk. I need to tell y'all what happened. So please bear with me. Now, they identified in open court, and the prosecutor lied about the evidence. So we didn't have no effective way to challenge the identification process. So then we went on to the next thing, which was the state. My lawyer, he didn't do his due diligence. He didn't do any investigation. So therefore, he couldn't challenge. So we go to court. The trial was just pretty much, me getting beat upside the head with all this evidence that the prosecutor is presenting, lies that he's presenting. And I'm looking at my attorney, I'm like, what the hell is going on? He's like, there's nothing we can do. You confess. So then I'm convicted. Then he goes to my family finally and says, hey, yeah, you need you to come in here and, beg these people not to kill your son, your grandson. And, I'm like, but what about the other mitigating evidence? All these other people in my neighborhood who says that, I'm not that type of person, that I'm a good person, stuff like that. He's like, we ain't got time for it. So then, bang, I get the death penalty. Now, when I go to SCI Green, they're solitary confinement. I'm scared out of my mind. And the young man that she was talking about earlier, Harold Wilson, he sends a kite down to my cell and says, hey, young brother, I got some groceries for you and I got some knowledge for you. I said, I want nothing from you, man. I don't know nothing, because he might want to be bunk mates or something. I don't want to roll like that. But he was a good, solid brother who looked out, showed me how to do things in the prison, like put a request slip in, to ask for, time to go to the law library, to the shower, to the yard for, extra linen or clothing and stuff. But they don't like giving this stuff out, the linen and stuff, the extra underwear. So they made you really struggle for that. But also to fill out the phone list so I can call home and let my family know that I was okay. Because you was only allowed, I think at that time it was like 2 calls a week. But anyway, takes me to the law library. He shows me how to, read my case, how to ask for, the evidence that's in the prosecutor's possession. But, they only gave you, what they wanted to give you. They didn't give you all of the evidence. So you couldn't effectively, fight your case. And I learned about the inconsistencies in my case. I learned about, the things that were missing in my case. And I learned about the arrest, how it was illegal, because a police officer, he can stop you and ask you questions, right? But he can't put his hands on you and throw you in the police car. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm about to get out of here. This was all illegal, right? So I get a new lawyer, a new court-appointed attorney. This guy, he's like, oh yeah, man, I'm with you with all the issues that you just put forward, this, that, and the other. I'm like, oh yeah, man, I'm about to get out of here. And so we filed, our claims, a petition. And then next thing you know, it's all denied. I said, why is it denied? Because he did not do his due diligence as far as getting the evidence to support the claims that we put forward. So this is my direct appeal. And then what also happened was the Supreme Court, you know, they twisted the facts of my case to justify the police officer's illegal arrest. The police officer, when he testified, said, "Oh no, I didn't see him doing anything. He was somebody that was walking around late at night, you know, looking for drugs, and I just wanted to know who he was. So I jumped out of the car and grabbed him, asked him who he was, and threw him in the back of the car, and ran my name through the PCIC, you know, to identify him. But the Supreme Court said, oh no, the stop was justified because there was a police call about a burglary in the neighborhood a few blocks away. And so therefore, you know, it was a proper stop to determine whether or not it was the individual, which is totally not the law, but also totally not the facts that were presented. So they, you know, introduced additional facts to justify the illegal arrest the police officer did. So this is the kind of system that we have in place now. We got a prosecutor who lies, withhold evidence. We have police officers who coerce confessions, you know, who coerce witnesses to lie, you know, fabricate evidence. I mean, oh man, it's totally mind-boggling how this system went on for so many years. This corruption, this injustice continues for so many years, and it's people like you that your voices, you know, it cries out to right these wrongs, but yet and though our government officials ignore it. Our politicians, they, you know, smile in your face and say, oh yeah, we're gonna get right on that, and they do nothing. And then they just wait us out, thinking that, you know, our voices are gonna die down. You know, that, you know, oh, they'll go away in a few minutes, or I'll be out of here at this office, and I'll be, you know, in the next office, you know, come next term. So I ain't gotta worry about them. They kick the can down the road. So yes, you know, appeal after appeal was filed over numerous years. And it was one thing after another. They kept continuing denying me access to the discovery, you know, the evidence that I asked for from the prosecutor. The prosecutor's not entitled to give you everything. You know, you're on a fishing expedition. You know, I'm like, I'm fighting for my life, and you trying to kill me. You know, you done signed my death warrant twice already. This is the city of brotherly love, trying to kill me for a crime that I did not commit. And they know this, but they don't care. So one appeal after another, you know, I get a good claim. I say, oh man, I got this. You know, I'm about to get out of here. Same thing again, but this time they tell me I didn't file the claim in a timely manner. So therefore, you know, my appeal is denied. I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. I'm time barred? What kind of sense does that make? You trying to take a man's life? So you know, I figure another maneuver out. Well, we're gonna blame it on that lawyer right there. That don't work. Oh, you know, your lawyer didn't have to do that. So therefore, you know, your appeal is denied. You know, I can't win with these people. And this is all state. But the thing they like to do is they like to drag out these appeals. Man, it took 5 years. One time it took 10 years for me to file an appeal and get it through the process to get a decision that, sorry, but you know, you should have been filed this, you know, way back when during the trial proceedings. I'm like, wait a minute. First you tell me that, you know, I'm not entitled to evidence. Then you tell me that I didn't file in a timely manner. Then you tell me my attorney, you know, was not ineffective when he failed to file this issue. I'm like, I can't win with these people. All right. Luckily, Larry Krasner came to office. Now, this progressive prosecutor, he saw a lot of the injustices that was taking place. And he was like, you know what? I want to review a lot of these cases, you know, and see what was wrong and see if we can right some of these wrong. Now, you know, the politicians and stuff, you know, they didn't like, you know, him coming in and doing anything. So they've been trying to get rid of him, you know, ever since. They're still trying to get rid of him. But he came in, he reviewed not only my case, but everybody's case and saw the massive, massive injustices that was taking place. But luckily in my case, you know, they found the evidence that we needed. They wrote a very detailed report about what happened. That the evidence in my case did not support my conviction, my death sentence. So first, my death sentence was overturned. And then finally, in February, you know, my conviction was overturned. I was set free. Now, I think through all that because my case is very complicated, you know, because the evidence that was hidden from us was a whole different case where the witnesses identified another man that they was having problems with, that they was testifying against in another case. This man, he beat up their friend, he you know, killed him, and he said, "Don't say nothing or I'm gonna hurt you." You know, spray the building. If I can't get you, my friend's gonna get you. Now this is all in their statements. All this evidence was hidden. This man fit the description that they gave of the individual that they believed set the fire. His name was Rick. He lived with them. He, you know, they testified, and 3 days after they testified against him, the building goes up in flames. Now, how in the world does the police not investigate this guy over here and come looking for me? We don't know. But hopefully, you know, we'll find out with some investigation. But yeah, that is the big thing that Larry Krasner brought to the table and said, hey, you know, we don't think this guy did this, so you gotta let him go. But also, he found the photo lineup that the previous prosecutor said didn't exist. I'm like, wait a minute, there was a photo lineup and you found it? I said, hold on, let me see it. I want to see if I'm in there, right? Because you said there was a filler in there and these people identified. These people got on the stand and lied and said that was in it. So we look at the thing and it's like, wait a minute. No, he's not there. Look at the second one. I don't see Daniel Gwynn anywhere in these photo lines. So how the hell? We don't know. We're still working on it though. I'll let you know when I found out. So, man, I'm home. It's been difficult. It's been a challenge, but I'm home. When I got out of that prison, when they opened the gate, they gave me this uniform. They like they just treat me real good and everything. I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm not going. But I kept looking back just in case, you know, squad came running out there to drag my ass back. You know, because I don't know, they tricking people. But you know, I got down to the end of the ramp. I looked back again. Nobody's chasing me. All right, I think I'm safe. So lawyers took me home. I walked through the door. I see these people say, "Welcome home, Damien." I'm like, who the hell are you? That was my family. I hadn't seen them in over 30 years because they kept me on the other side of the state, locked up in some facility, some hole, because, you know, I don't know. One of these days, we're going to ask these children and say, why did y'all do it? What, maybe on the deathbed confession or something, you know, one of them will say, you know, why they did this, why they continue to do it. Why do they want to kill their citizens, you know, for crimes that they commit? And they know this. I mean, is it for their political career? Is it for money? Because I know a lot of them has these businesses that are profiting off of our incarceration. I mean, the commissary, that's a big one. The phone, that's another big one. I mean, they was charging us $15 for one phone call. Families were going broke. They was going into debt because they couldn't keep up with the payments of collect calls. Because when you're incarcerated, right, you feel alone, you feel abandoned. No matter how much your family tells you they love you and this, that, and the other, that place is scary. Some individuals are, really killers. I mean, when I walked in that joint, I was like, man, I'm surrounded by killers. I'm watching my. That's why I was, kind of sketchy about Harold Wilson. But there, I was grateful, for Harold Wilson. Me and him was friends for, from the time that we met that day until his death. That when he got out, that man was a blessing. And I met other good individuals in there as well that helped me, get books, sell my artwork. I'm a self-taught artist. I didn't know how to. I didn't draw a little bit, those cartoons and stuff, but I taught myself how to draw, then how to paint, and I found, individuals in there that helped me sell the artwork to other prisoners, so I can get art supplies, so I can get legal materials, so I can fight my case. Man, then I started reaching out to people on the outside with my artwork by, entering various competitions, around the city and then throughout the world. And I actually came in third place in Germany, for this gorgeous painting that I did called Visitation. So I'm an international award-winning artist. Third place, but still a winner. And I also did a painting that I gave to. It was a portrait of Princess Diana and her two sons. Right, I gave that to the family, the royal family. So it's over there somewhere. I'm still digging for that dang on certificate so I can show everybody I'm not lying to you. So
also, I want to show you something. This is a shirt that he did when he was in prison.
Yeah.
And it's
called Unearthed.
And down here is the.
Hey, can you come closer to the camera there?
Oh. Daniel, you explain. This is a man on.
That's this man on the gun being executed. Being executed in secret by, by these evildoers that's sitting in the bureau box, just cheering on, this man being executed. And then, you see the menacing needles and stuff, because that's how they do it. They do it by lethal injection. They want to pump you full of poison. So we have the abolitionists and stuff, good people like yourselves, that's breaking the ground, that's breaking the barriers, that's preventing, us from seeing what's going on down there. They're trying to free that. That's what y'all do, and that's that's what gives us hope. That's what keeps us going inside. Because it's hard pressed in there, and a lot of individuals are giving up. They're committing suicide. They're on drugs. I don't know how drugs get in here, but they're trying to find different ways to escape. But one of the best ways was becoming pen pals with Kate. He talked my ears off, and phone calls. Even though at the time they were expensive, because of litigation, the prices dropped down to a reasonable level, to whereas though we can call 3 times a day without breaking the bank.
You want to see if anybody has a question for you?
No, but If anyone has a question, I'll be glad to answer.
What about compensation?
Oh, compensation. Okay, this is what happened. Their compensation, it doesn't happen. You have to fight for it. When they open up the door, they kicked you out, they give you nothing, and then oh wait a minute, I forgot they do give you the clothing, that's, that's free. But no, there's no compensation, okay, in the state of Pennsylvania. You have to fight for it. Next. Who's fighting for me? I have a group of attorneys who are looking into the possibility of compensation.
How you survive?
Well, when I got out, Art for Justice director Anne-Marie Kirk helped me meet Jane Golden of Mural Arts Philadelphia, and they took me in for an interview and gave me a job as a mural artist. So we just finished the mural on 22nd and Cecil B. Moore Avenue on the side of the MLK Rec Center. So that's what I've been doing for the past 3 months.
Have you got any mural up now?
Just that one at the moment. But on Death Row, one of the things that I did, I painted 7 murals there. And, they all were requested by the other prisoners. They was like, look, man, it's boring around here, it's drab, man. Put some of your artwork up on the wall so we can take pictures in front of it. I'm like, all right, I never did it before, so I'll try it. So I went to the wall, I looked at it, what do you want to be? It said, I want to be the Incredible Hulk. So I said, oh, okay. And the prisoners, they just stood around and they watched me transform that wall into the Incredible Hulk, breaking through the wall, and he was crushing the word negative, and the word positive was over top of him, right? And all these inspirational words, were in the debris, and they loved it. They loved it. Oh, I forgot. Hello.
Okay. How can we learn about work in art or support it or buy it
Okay.
if you can't afford it now?
I've only been out 4 months, so I'm still, developing these things. But to see my artwork, you will see some of it on artforjustice.org. I was in severe pain because of I was banged, left with my grandmother, and my grandmother took care of me. My father, he wasn't around. He always made broken promises. So, I was in a fragile state of mind. 10 years drug addict. These individuals get a hold of it, okay, and these detectives, were very menacing. they were very convincing about, you know, the facts that they had, showing me documents with my name on it. And I'm listening to what they're saying, and I'm like, no, this can't be true, right? And they manipulated. They led me to believe that they was going to hurt me. Now, this was the 90s. So back then, the police were kind of aggressive with us on the street. They would, you know, shake us down when we standing on the corner or coming from the corner store, you know, turning our pockets out, throwing us in the back of the police car, taking us to the far side of town where it's a rival gang, and they would dump us out there so we get jumped by rival gangs. So the terror that I felt from these individual officers were real. I mean, and I was going through withdrawal. I don't know if any of you are, you know, experienced, you know, how it feels to be a drug addict or alcoholic or anything like that, and then, you know, wake up and, you know, you're crummy, you're foggy, you're, you know, oh, you're vulnerable. These individuals, they took advantage of me at that low point, and they were very convincing. And that's all I can give you. Next. Yes.
How many guys were executed while you were on the road? Did you know anything?
2 guys were executed while I was on the road. Many of us our warrants were signed even after the moratorium. Yes, Governor Wolf put a moratorium in place, and they said, no, we don't care if you put a moratorium in place. We still want to sign these guys' warrants, knowing that it wasn't going to kill us because of political fear.
In Pennsylvania, the way cases move forward is if you lose your appeal, and then you have to file something at the next, and what instigates the next round of appeals is setting a date, and then they ask for a stay and move it forward. Rob Dunn can explain more of the legal stuff about it tomorrow.
Okay, awesome, cool. And then on North Carolina and South Carolina and Texas.
Yes.
How many appeals do you order, and after which one do you like? You're gonna get up.
Oh, goodness. I do not have the exact number of how many appeals I filed because it was big. I filed a direct appeal. I filed a PCRA. I filed a second. Well, I filed an appeal to that denial for the PCRA. Then I filed a second PCRA. And then I filed an appeal to that denial for the second PCRA. Then I filed the habeas corpus. Then I filed an appeal to the habeas corpus. Then I went back down to the other court again to file. So it was numerous appeals. Did I ever think about giving up? Hell no. Because I was angry. I didn't take that anger and, you know, hurt myself or hurt anyone else. I took that anger and I educated myself about my case. I knew that the facts of my case was going to lead to my, you know, conviction being overturned. I never dreamed of exoneration because I saw how these individuals in the legal system was playing other guys. You know, they would say, yeah, you are entitled to relief, but, you know, we want you to plead the 3rd degree, which is no contest. You know, that's the only way you're going to get out, so get out with time served. So I never gave up. Yes.
Were you in solitary?
Yes, for 25 years, solitary confinement. That now, solitary confinement, that means that you're in a cell by yourself. You are this. Everything is metal. You have limited access to books, to supplies. You can purchase a television if you can afford it, but then you have to purchase cable every month in order to get a signal strong enough to watch any programs. The antenna was nothing, probably 5 or 6 channels. They shackled you. First, they strip search you, take all your clothes off, tell you to bend over, let me look up there, that's another, right? Then after they do that, they put the shackles on your hands, they put a belt around your waist, they put shackles on your ankles, then they put a dog leash on you and then drag you from here to there. They don't care if you're just going to the shower, yard, law library, or visit. And then when you come back, they stick you out again.
Actually, for a dog leash?
Yes. They put it around your handcuffs on your wrists, so they can have control of it, just in case you want to, get fraud. Yes.
How did you keep it?
My artwork. I just painted my feelings. My art is my story. I told about how when I was on the street, begging for change so I can get high. I had a home living with my grandpa, but I still, I was still, I was, I was just a mess. So I painted. I had a choice: education or drugs. And because of the pain that I was in, I chose drugs because I wanted to escape my reality, you know. But when I was incarcerated, and I got mad, that's when, no more drugs. I cleaned myself up, cleared my head, got, a little bit of education, got my GED, got some art books, learned how to paint more. And then, my faith in God, he was with me every step of the way. Even though I didn't acknowledge him a lot, his love for me was still there. And it shows in my art.
Now, you mentioned Harold Wilson,
Yes.
but he got about somewhere around 2005. So were you able to keep in touch with Harold?
Absolutely. That was my brother from another mother. We communicated letters, even phone calls, after he got out. While he was inside, we would go to the law library together, we would go to the yard, exercise together, yeah, he was a real good brother. So.
I don't so much have a question as a comment and a reaction to one small part of the story.
Sure.
And of course, I invite your comment.
Sure.
And that has to do with how you refer to yourself for the time you were addicted. You refer to yourself as a drug addict.
Yes.
And we've talked a lot about how important words and language is. I think it's, maybe it's a little thing, but I don't see anyone as a drug addict. You're a person first who happens to be addicted to drugs. It may seem subtle, but to me, it's important. And I would encourage you to even see yourself and to tell your story in a way that it doesn't demean the dignity of each person, whether they're addicted to drugs or whatever the case may be. And the first thing I want to say is congratulations on your liberation. And I'm so sorry about the injustices that you suffered. And I'm grateful for you coming and telling your story. So thank you.
Okay.
The best pitch generated honorarium for you for speaking. We've also been able to generate some funds for you from the Michael Graham Death Row Survivor Legacy Fund, which is basically morphing into a program that Death Penalty Action is creating to be able to help people like you. You may get some compensation, but you're in this space where you got nothing, right? And that's why there's also a GoFundMe available. I want to invite everybody that's here. There's a link for those who are watching on the video. But if you're here, you can just find it on the Death Penalty Action Facebook page. Scroll down a little bit, you'll find your GoFundMe, and that's where anybody who feels so compelled can go in and make a contribution to support your freedom. I mean, just imagine 30 years robbed, and this is the most recent person exonerated and freed in the United States. 197, 8. I don't know now. Actually, 198 just happened. Actually, that was Carrie Max Cook. So you were just before that. Carrie Max Cook has been out for over 20 years, but just this a week or two ago, he was declared absolutely innocent by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. If you hadn't heard about that, that's pretty amazing stuff. And he went to trial 4 times. Okay, and eventually, finally took a plea in order to get there's the glory plea or face charges again. Anyway, so that's at the end of the day, they're going to do everything they can to not do anything. Our friend Con Simmons, who was released a year ago almost in Oklahoma, 48 years, 5 months, 18 days. First couple of those years on death row. Thank God his GoFundMe took off, but the state is capped at $175,000 compensation. That's like $3,600 per year of incarceration. Okay. Anyway, we're here for you. We're glad to have you in the family. The last question. You got to go down to a big rally today. I mean, I know you were very trepidatious about coming here. You didn't know what to expect. It's because Kate invited you. So we're grateful that you came. And are you happy that you came? And do you have any thoughts about just the presence of what we're doing? And you've been out there starving for justice, boiling in the hot heat with us.
Yeah.
What is your reaction to being present with us for that?
Well, I'm grateful that you are out there, fighting and advocating for us. I say us because my mind, I'm still inside. I still got brothers left in here that, we all worked out together, we ate together. We learned the law together. And when I was here talking to a lot of you, and I saw the look in your eyes when we was talking, not just about me, but about your interests, it made me feel real good. It made me feel comfortable, comfortable enough to, meet new friends, walk around with a smile on my face and feel like I was one of them. I went down there and heard Reverend Barber, we had a nice little time down there, sitting out there sweating in the sun, and talking to, people, even though I was still kind of irked by some people, that didn't want to hear us. I wanted to get up and shake them and say, yo, wake up and, pay attention to what's happening. Because it was one little case that, like, I'm not old enough, yet to sign these petitions, but I'm interested in what you have to say. What can I do? And I said, you're doing it right now. You're listening to what I have to say. Now take what I have to say and take it back to your people and teach them. Teach them that, we have to wake up and fight for our rights, fight to change. Now, when it's time for you to vote, get out there and vote the right people. And I love what you're doing. I really do. And I'm glad I see it.
So that's Daniel Gwynn, and he'll be with us until sometime tomorrow afternoon. And then he gets to go back to Philadelphia and go to work. But we're grateful that you came, and we'll look forward to Starvin with you again. Hopefully, sadly, this event's gonna have to keep going. And tonight, we're almost done. We have one more speaker, and I want to change. Sadly, we're going to change the mood a little bit, and that is because Alli Sullivan is here to share with us about her past week being in Texas and then Oklahoma, and being the eyes and ears of death penalty action, and therefore all of you and everybody that's watching, as the state of Texas and then the state of Oklahoma executed 2 men. Alli Sullivan, Communications Coordinator for Death Penalty Action.
Thank you, Abe. I apologize if I'm a little slow tonight. I am super tired. I'm running on like very little sleep the last week and a half. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I got into what I'm doing. And so I study social and cultural anthropology, and anthropology teaches us to get to know people, how they see themselves, and not just be content with what you hear about them and what other people say about them. And so that, I think, is largely why I got into doing what I'm doing. I was very active in the George Floyd protests in Portland. I went to dozens of them, and in the back of my mind was always the death penalty and incarceration, and I was very frustrated that that was not being discussed enough within the context of racial justice and the George Floyd protests. And so a couple months after that happened, the federal execution spree started up, and I learned about those executions, and I became very not involved, but I was following very closely the execution of Brandon Bernard. And that night that Brandon Bernard was executed, I sat in my mom's car bawling my eyes out for like 4.5 hours because I just could not comprehend that our government would kill somebody who has worked so hard and put in so much effort to meaningfully atone for what they did. And so it was that night Brandon Bernard was executed that I realized I had to get involved somehow. I didn't really know what to do, and I knew I wasn't going to unilaterally end this practice, but I started writing to people on death row, and it kind of took off really crazily. And at one point I was writing to like 40 people, and it just got a lot. But it's important for me to, I mentioned seeing people how they see themselves, but I really wanted to understand who these people were behind their crime and behind the narratives that the media was pushing and the state was pushing. And very quickly I began to see that most of these people are nothing like what they're described to be. I wrote a paper a couple weeks ago for a legal anthropology class called Branded a Monster, and that's very much what we see here. These people are branded a monster, and in the eyes of the public, they can't be anything else, even if they're exonerated, even if things change and new evidence comes out, the public will never see them as anything but a monster. And that's just so devastating to me because I have seen firsthand that these people, many of them are extremely thoughtful and extremely courteous and kind, and they really just want to help other people. They want to make up for their crime as best as they know how. They recognize that nothing they will do will bring back the lives that were lost, but in spite of that, they still work every single day to make the world a better place, make the lives around them better. And so that brings me to Ramiro Gonzalez. I met Ramiro about almost 3 years ago. He was preparing for his execution date. I think it was the end of 2021, and there was a bunch of dates scheduled pretty close together in Texas, and many of those dates got pushed back because of John Henry's religious freedom issue, and so a lot of the dates got pushed back, and Ramiro and Casol's were dates that got pushed back, and I decided to reach out to those people. There was like 7 people in line, and I don't know why, but I was compelled to reach out to Ramiro and to Casol trying to come on, and I will never regret that I did that. They both were incredibly special people, and so the next summer, both of them were preparing for their execution the summer of 2022. And Ramiro's execution was about a month before Casol's, July 13th, and Casol's was August 17th. And I got closer to Ramiro around that time because we were talking a lot more at that time. He had his hourly phone calls in the days leading up to his execution, and there was one phone call where I was asking him about Casol because Casol and Ramiro probably have the record for the longest time spent on death watch ever in the country. Ramiro at that time had been on death watch nearly 2 years, and Casol nearly a year and a half. And they became really close in that time. For a long time, they were the only 2 people on death watch together. So they would pray together, they would have rec together. They were pretty much the only people each other had for a long time. And so a couple days before Ramiro was supposed to be executed that year, I was talking to him about Casol, and Casol had an innocence claim, and Ramiro was trying to donate his kidney and just show the world that he really valued life and had completely turned his life around. And so he told me, he basically said something along the lines of, if I had to die, if it meant Casol could live, he would want that. And so Casol ended up dying that summer, and it's especially devastating because 2 years later, Ramiro's no longer with us either. But I mentioned this in the opening circle the other day. This is probably the most devastating work anyone can be a part of. When I was getting into this work, I was a hospice caregiver, so I was around death a lot, and I study forensic anthropology, so I'm constantly around death. And at first, being a hospice caregiver was difficult because I had not really been around death very much in my life. But as soon as I started getting into this, I realized that the pain and the grief and the loss you feel in this work, it doesn't compare to literally anything else. And I got a lot of comfort in that when we were caring for people on hospice, we were trying to make them as comfortable as we could. We were trying to surround them with love and their family and just make sure that their last little bit of time was as peaceful as possible. And it is the complete opposite when you're dealing with somebody on death row. You are extinguishing somebody's life, and in many cases they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s. They have a lot of life left in them if they weren't on death row. And this work is just so devastating, but I keep doing it because you meet some really remarkable people on death row. I know not every single person is a fantastic person and is remorseful and recognizes the magnitude of what they did, but the vast majority of the people I've met are, I would feel safe around them. I've learned a lot from them. They've shown that they're just so different than what they're described as. And sometimes I think about, what if I didn't get into this work? Basically, I'm in a perpetual state of grieving. I cry every day. I think about Casol every day, and a number of the other guys that I've known and met. And my life would look so completely different if I didn't get into this. But even though it's so painful, I think it's worth it because people are worth fighting for, and seeing people as people. And most of these people they've been so isolated, they've been so abandoned, there's not many people that see them as people. And I think that's the most special thing that we can do, is just to recognize that these people are people. And many of them did terrible things, but that does not make them any less human. And I just wish more people recognize that. We can simultaneously condemn the crime that they committed while also recognizing that they're more than just that one moment. And yeah, it's really devastating. I was in Texas this past week for Ramiro Gonzalez. I was supposed to have a 4-hour visit with him. It got a little screwed up. I still end up seeing him several times through the glass window, and we exchanged some messages. But the last image I have in my mind of Ramiro is just him with this humongous smile. He was just so grateful and so excited to see everybody that was there for him. And seeing that smile and just seeing how remorseful he was. I mean, Bridget Townsend's family still wanted the execution to go through. They were not willing to forgive him at that time. And that's really, really hard. And I think that's also part of the tragedy in this situation is not just that we're killing people, but we're making other people, we're filling other people with so much hate that they can't look past that moment. And I don't want to underscore the tragedy that their family has endured and other families, but there's so much more to these people than just the crime that they committed. And I really do hope more people can see that. I wish everybody was able to experience Ramiro Gonzalez and other people like him. He was such a joy, and he brought so much happiness to so many people. And even though I've been through several executions, there's probably, I think Ramiro is probably the 9th or 10th person I've known that was executed. And I mean, I've recognized the reality of the situation. We know that the courts are not in our favor. We know that the legislators and the politicians and the DAs and the AGs and the governors, for the most part, don't really align themselves with us. But I don't know, I think I was still in denial that they were actually going to kill Ramiro because he had survived the last couple of times they tried to kill him. And I think it was just so abundantly evident that he was a remarkable person. And so I don't know, losing Ramiro a couple of days ago, it just compounded more grief on top of grief, and I don't know how else to explain it, but yeah, Ramiro was a special person, and I will not stop telling his story. I will not stop telling Casol's story, or Dustin Higgs' story, or Ernest Johnson's story, or any of the other people I met, because I mean, I don't even know what to say. They were all special in their own ways, and many of them did terrible things, but that does not make all of them just terrible people. And yeah, I would really encourage everybody who's not writing people, if that's something you're like, you have the capacity to do, I definitely would encourage it. It completely changes you. I'm not the same person I was before I started writing people, and I will never be that again, but it's really beautiful just seeing these people and making them feel seen. So that's all I got for you today.
Any questions, Robin? Good Robin.
Yeah.
When you started communicating, did you do due diligence or any type of research before you started communicating?
So the question was basically like, did I do any research into their background before I started communicating with them? In many cases, no. I mean, a lot of these people I found through social media, or I heard they were mentioned somewhere in the news, and so like I had a very, very basic background on who they were, but like I said earlier, I wasn't convinced that the stories we were hearing was the complete picture. And so I wasn't just satisfied with what we were hearing about them. And I mean, anthropology teaches you not to just listen to secondhand information and to get to know these people yourself and get to see them through their own lens and through how they view themselves. And so that's really what guided what I do. And I wasn't convinced that what I was hearing was the complete truth or even a partial truth. And so I really kind of just left that in the background and just got to know these people without too much like information, right? Yeah. Are we done?
Yes, thank you very much, Sharon. Alli is one of those people that would be doing this work, whether there was a way to pay her for it or not. We're grateful to have Alli on the staff of deathpenaltyaction.org. So, Death Penalty Action. So thank you, Alli. And now we get to close it up for the night. Our program did run a bit longer than expected. We're supposed to be out of this building in 20 minutes, which means that we need people right away to go and help clear the space out there, bring everything. So the chairs and the tables and all can go into the trailer. The big banners, I think we have all the big banners in, right?
Right.
So we just need to gather it up and then get your things. And then we'll be back here again, I think 8 a.m. There's Scott. Actually, Sunday morning is probably okay if we come back by 9 or so, and we'll be here all day tomorrow. We have another program at 6 p.m., but we also tomorrow have at 2 p.m. This one will not be live streamed, but Cantor Zusman, that part might be live streamed outside. Cantor Zusman is going to come and sing a special prayer here, and then we'll be showing the film In the Executioner's Shadow here in this room, and might actually end up being perfect because it's supposed to rain tomorrow. And then we so we'll have another program tomorrow evening with more wonderful speakers. That'll be live streamed, and then the weather's going to break, and we're going to have 2 lovely days, Monday and Tuesday. And by the way, we're overnight Monday. Those of you that want to, will stay out with us all night overnight to maintain this vigil. But we're striving for justice. We're working it. We're doing it. We're grateful that you're all here, and we're thanking everybody who's watching and sharing online. And now let's get packed up.